Hello everybody, welcome to another Source Gaming discussion. I am your host, Colin, and I am joined today by Martin, who is back in action, just like the Looney Tunes. And we got some interesting little tidbits to discuss for the holiday 2018 financial reports for Nintendo, and we learned a lot of really cool stuff, just mostly sales and all that. Smash sold 12 million units in a month, which is really impressive. Total worldwide sales of the Switch is 32 million, which is also very impressive. But then, news outlet Nikkei put out an article basically saying, and this is rumors by the way, this is not pure fact, it's just what apparently they are hearing through the grapevine. They have reported that that Nintendo is planning on releasing a smaller version of the Nintendo Switch sometime between fiscal year 2019, which is anywhere between April 1st to March 31st next year. Apparently, some developers and suppliers might actually know about this new version of the console already, and on top of that, honestly, more interesting news of the bunch here is that apparently Switch Online might get some kind of new edition, quote-unquote, aimed at core gamers, and that is what we are here to discuss today. So, Martin, we've talked about Nintendo Switch console variations before in the past. Let's quickly talk about the Switch Mini first, because I feel like we've talked about it a few times. We've kind of gone over our thoughts and opinions on the Switch Mini. Mine have always been, on paper, it sounds like a pretty good idea. The Switch is not the most portable thing on the planet. A Switch that's either A, more pocketable, or B, something for much younger audiences to grasp onto seems like kind of a good idea. My problems have always been whether or not they're able to get good battery life out of it, how it's going to work with Joy-Cons, whether there will be like smaller Joy-Cons or if you'll even be able to remove the controls from the system itself, if you can even dock a Switch Mini, the resolution of the screen, whether or not the system would have to be like underclocked even more than it is in portable mode. It's always seemed like something that is totally doable, but has a lot of caveats, and I would like to see how they actually would present it before, I don't know, deciding on whether or not it's a good idea. It really wouldn't be for me, but that's just me.
When you think about it, just in simplistic terms, if you strip away all the worries and you strip away all of the possible hurdles it might have to overcome, on paper, it's gonna sell like gangbusters this year because you have Pokemon, and a Switch Mini, theoretically, is going to open that market even further. I mean, I've seen some people talk about how this could be technically the 3DS quote-unquote successor that Nintendo has been kind of teasing us about for a while, and it makes sense because it would effectively boot the 3DS out of its spot and discontinue that system and be an extension of the Switch family. So in a sense, yeah, it's going to sell well, it's going to introduce a lot more people to Switch stuff. So I think it's a good idea to release this year, and it actually lines up pretty well with the Wall Street Journal report, which said that Nintendo was thinking about making another revision coming this summer at the latest, and this report says it could be coming up fiscal year, which is between, I think, March or April of this year to March of next year. So there's plenty of time, and they could also release it this holiday too. So again, timing seems pretty good, and the in practice seems pretty good because we're 2 years into the lifespan. But I understand your concerns, and I actually agree with some of them, because how are they going to basically make sure that the fundamental core of the Switch still stays intact? Now, I understand that really with miniaturizing the Switch, you will have to make some sacrifices. Like, I'm pretty sure, this is just my opinion, but I think they'll have to take out the option of detachable controllers, because really, how small can you make the Joy-Cons? Honestly, the Joy-Cons are already small as it is, and me with big meaty hands won't be able to, I'm not able to grip them as well as I thought I would when they first launched, but making them smaller is going to make them a lot harder to control with. So I think that would be an issue. But another issue, again, is how do you dock it? Because is it going to have, like, a built-in dock or something? Like, to where you could have a hidden HDMI port somewhere, and you could prop it up on a stand, and then the vent properly ventilates itself or something. That's just an idea, but basically, in practice, it seems fine. but the execution might be a little worrying. Now, I do know that they are probably going to use a different motherboard for this because, well, first of all, how are they going to fit the current motherboard into a smaller Switch when the current Switch is already packed as it is? And second, we already know that a board revision called Mariko is coming, and when you put 2 and 2 together, it's most likely for this. So they are probably putting that into consideration.
I mean, granted, I think it mostly just comes down to how they do redesign the board and the handheld itself. I'm almost kind of curious if they made the device overall smaller, but they made it like a little chunkier, just so like, they can sort of layer on components instead of having to kind of spread them out the way they are on the regular Switch. Because obviously with a smaller device, it's better to kind of spread out that surface area rather than like clump everything together. But with a smaller system, you know, you can just lay the battery wherever. And I guess if the Joy-Cons aren't detachable, that is technically the smallest of more spaces to put a bigger battery, but who knows? Maybe they'll figure out some way to have like a bunch of 3DS batteries just kind of...
I think the bigger question is, if they're going to get rid of the Joy-Cons, are they going to include a D-pad?
Probably not. I think Nintendo is sticking to the whole like cross-pad thing, as weird as that is. I don't know. It is going to be weird because there's going to be some games that are just like flat out not going to be able to be played on it. That's not true. I guess some of the functionality of the Joy-Cons won't be totally lost because you could presumably connect them wirelessly anyway. I doubt Nintendo would like remove the Bluetooth antenna inside the Switch Mini. So like Mario Party is still playable despite not in portable mode. You'll just have to bring a Joy-Con in your back pocket if you want to. There's gonna be a lot of weird things with it. As I said, it's just gonna have to come down to what it looks like and how they translate features of the Switch that may or may not be totally translatable.
And another thing too is, and I think this is kind of far-fetched, but I just want to ask you, basically, do you think that if they make a Switch Mini, and presuming this report is correct, do you think that they'll make the system digital only?
No, the cartridge port doesn't really take up a lot of space. Especially, like, I imagine they're doing this for a younger audience. I'm assuming that if I see the Switch Mini, I'm gonna feel the same way I feel about the 2DS, where I'm just kind of like, oh, I get it. It's not for my grown-ass hands. As I said before, it's hearsay until I actually see it, and I'm gonna have to see it to believe it, and I'm gonna have to see it to see how it even works. But out of all of the Switch revision ideas I have heard, it is far and away the least far-fetched.
The next portion's kind of the interesting part, because part of the Nikkei article, this is kind of funny because there's 2 parts to the Nikkei article. One was the free version, and the other one was the paid version. And the paid version gave more information, not related to the Switch Mini actually, but to the Nintendo Switch online service. Gasp. Basically what they're saying is that the Nintendo Switch online service is going to get some more, I guess, goods or services aimed at core gamers, which is vague. And Colin, like, what do you think they mean by that?
I'm really picturing some Dr. Evil air quotes around towards core gamers here. I mean, I think the most obvious one that we can just kind of pull out of thin air and be like, yeah, this is probably what it means, is just adding more games to online, which kind of makes sense. That seems like a way, at least Nintendo of Japan would word it, is how like, oh, well, we're not updating NES Online with SNES and N64 and whatever games. We're adding a new service called SNES Online and stuff like that. I mean, as much as a lot of people would like to say that the Switch Online is very, very out of date, it's very behind, it's missing a lot of features, which I won't argue against. There's definitely things that are on other platforms that should be included with the Switch Online program, and I would like to see come over. You know, messaging would probably be a pretty good idea. But that is definitely curious, the idea of these classic console updates that we're already seeing and that we already kind of know are coming due to the data mines. But I'm assuming they also just mean new features, or at least new ways of fleshing out features we already have. Because they have that app that does nothing. So you can look at your Splatoon 2 stats, You can voice chat in like 4 games tops.
This was brought up before, but like, we know that certain Switch games have built-in voice chat and don't even need to rely on the phone to use voice chat. And a lot of people might think that this statement might mean, oh my gosh, they're getting rid of the requirements for the phone in first-party titles. And while I would love that and seriously thank Nintendo for being, okay, where the heck have you been? I still think that there's still gonna ride on that for at least a couple more years, because first of all, it's just Nintendo. I mean, what are you supposed to expect? It would be nice if I could chat with people in Smash Brothers without this stupid app, but I just think that's not gonna change.
I mean, I feel like this would sort of borderline go into me just talking about Switch Online, which is something I want to do in a very soon upcoming video. There's definitely plenty of things that the Switch Online could improve on that for the longest time I assumed that with the Switch Online was going to come with like a major OS overhaul and not just sort of like a continuation or a bizarre fleshing out / non-fleshing out of what we already had. It actually is kind of hard to sit here and really think about what they could add that wouldn't just be like the same sort of bog standard, like, oh yeah, they could add messaging, they could add SNES games.
The only thing I can think of that's really lacking, and this isn't even related to the online itself, is a proper data management setup. Like, that's the only thing I can think of, but that's not even online related. I mean, Nintendo, they're in a weird spot because their OS is bare bones, but it's functional, and functional is at least good. I mean, the Wii U OS looked stunning. I liked how it looked, but it wasn't really that functional. I mean, there was a lot of issues switching between games. This hits it out of the ballpark, but in terms of design, that's where it's lacking. And you want to really fine-tune things to find that balance between the two. I think adding more functionality is awesome. Excuse me, and I find this kind of weird because a good example of Nintendo's thinking is their recent firmware update, which is 7.0, which people thought would bring like massive amount of features, but it didn't. It was just a lot of changes under the hood and new Super Mario Bros. U profile pictures, which, hey, those are cool. But like, I think they're kind of in a standstill right now because they don't know what to improve with the Switch, because they got all the main stuff out of the way. They just need to fine-tune it and improve upon it. So that's my stance. I think they have the fundamentals down. They basically have the framework. They just need to up the ante and be like, alright, boom, this is improved. Boom, this is improved. You guys want this fixed? Alright, we'll tweak it a little bit and see how you guys like it.
I think that just about covers it.
Anyways, I want to thank you guys for watching, and I also want to thank Colin for filling in for hosting duties in this discussion. He did a really decent job, and you should definitely check out his material. He's a really good host for Good Morning Source Gaming, which we are continuing to do, so I recommend you check that out. But be sure to follow us on our social media pages, including our Facebook and Twitter accounts. Be sure to also support us on Patreon to receive exclusive perks. I want to thank our super Patreon, the Duke of Dorks. His channel will be linked in the description below as well. We hope you guys enjoyed this video, and we will see you in the next one.